Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Weldie and Andrew here in month of July. We are in the unofficial middle of the off season, and we've got a lot of news. We got a busy show today. And as we were talking, usually obviously our shows go long, but you know, we obviously want to talk about Carl's plan about the NCAA tournament. I'd like to get to that. We'll see where time kind of goes, but him on CHN's podcast and Woden trying to defend his take, it was
and like very unprepared to do so as well. Made for some great podcasting. It was a popcorn prompting show, because that segment in particular was worth the price of admission with that debate between Carl and Woden.
You know, usually when you say, like, you see a beautiful hockey player, it's like, oh, that's cinema. It was something was pure cinema. I don't know what the radio or audible form is that you can kind of say, but it was that, because Carl was like, okay, let's just get into it. And
he's got numbers. He's got like hard data. Someone is an intern in Denver is feeding him some good data, which Woden had no response to.
Yeah. And I think my highlight, at least, was Carl was talking about how it was like, well, you're concerned about these four teams. it's like these middle teams,
the 8, 9, and 7, 10.
The 8, 9.
He's going to get the home matchups between them.
And it's like, well, win more games. And that's always been my thought too. It's like, again, I love Carl when it's not hockey related, because I'm annoyed with him everywhere else, and I hope he goes pro, which I don't think he will anytime soon. But that's something different, neither here nor there. But we got a new coach for the women's team. It's Mira Jalosuo, and I've been practicing that. Andrew and I practiced that over and over in the green room. Holly, our athletic trainer Holly Schreiner said it. I was
going to say, don't butcher that. That's a much easier name, Holly Schreiner.
Like the whole time I'm thinking I'm Ted Baxter here. That I'm Ted Baxter on Mary Tyler Moore show, WJM TV. Like, I'm going to butcher Holly's name, but Mira Jalosuo, that's going to
knocked it out of the park.
Yep. So Mary Tyler Moore show, for our younger listeners, was a groundbreaking anyway. So it sounds like, you know, first off, when Adolski, I listened to some of his press conference as he was talking about how, you know, they came to the decision of him, you know, going to the PWHL for the head coaching job. I found it interesting that he interviewed for both teams. He interviewed for Vancouver and Seattle. So it was like, so it's like he was gone. Like, one of those was definitely gonna pique his interest. So but you know, we've got Mira Jalosuo, who was the assistant for the Minnesota Frost, back-to-back champions of the PWHL, and kind of headed up their scouting as well. And also before that was on the staff here at St. Cloud State under Adolski in his first year. So, you know, with the press conference today, you know, just kind of her brought up how she came to the decision on a 3-hour flight delay in Ottawa. And it was, you know, when I saw her name kind of came across as the one to head up the bench, I got really excited. Just kind of, what were your overall takeaway from the press conference and the selection of Jalosuo behind the bench?
Well, I tuned in to the press conference today, recording here on Tuesday, the 22nd. That presser that introduced Jalosuo about noon your time, a little bit earlier for me over in Arizona. But
do you have the bacon and eggs and a cup of coffee on?
It's already at work. It's 10 o'clock. I already had my coffee. I was in midday mode by that time. But yeah, I was really impressed with Jalosuo. I was impressed by Halle Schreiner too, if we're on the topic. This is really the first experience I had with her as a big AD moment. Her big first hire since taking the job a couple of years ago. Weems was the one to on her way out to NCHC commissioner. Her last kind of act as St. Cloud State's AD was hiring Adolski. And now Schreiner gets to hire a first head coach in the between hockey programs in her tenure. And I thought she was impressive as well. But, Jalosuo, obviously Finnish born product, English, not her first language, but she's like, I don't go by note. I don't read off notes. I just wing it, and had a commanding presence. Yeah. And felt natural, and didn't feel like I was being sold a line or anything. And again, it's an introductory press conference. It's a lot of history to unfold here in her tenure as head coach, but just on first impressions, those are important. And I thought she knocked it out of the park there. And some interesting news came out as part of that press conference. The entire assistant coaching staff is being retained. So Janelle Sergey, who long time, this will be her 5th St. Cloud State head coach that she's been an assistant under. It's incredible. And then also Noor Ratu and Emily Ock. All 3 are on the staff last year. They will all be on the staff under Jalosuo going forward. We talked, last show was right on the heels of Adolski's resignation and speculating on what the next move was. We knew it would be relatively quick. It was later that week that we heard that Jalosuo was tabbed as the next head coach. I had speculated my clubhouse favorite that I put on the show would have been Sergey, because she's been there the longest as the assistant. I do think it's just she just doesn't want the job. I think she's just more comfortable as an assistant.
And there was something actually that was brought up to me in a tweet, and I can't remember actually who said it to me, but Sergey wasn't a finalist when Adolski was hired.
Correct.
And so, to not be a finalist, and then they didn't even technically go through the rounds of a finalist or a coach's search. They tabbed someone, and it's like, so I wonder if it's something along the lines of either A, she just doesn't want it, she's comfortable and got a good position, does very well in it, and that's just what she wants to do, or maybe waiting for Wisconsin as a Wisconsin alum when Johnson leaves. That could be something, and she doesn't want to, do something kind of half-heartedly in one head coach's role before that opens up. That obviously just speculation. So I'm not sure there, but Baskin, Jake Baskin. I brought that up that Sergey wasn't a finalist, and I didn't think about that. So credit to him for that. So, so it's got to be, and that Mira reached out to Sergey as well, and say, and talked about it, and was completely on board with Mira coming in as a head coach. So I thought that was really interesting, and it says a lot about Mira as well, and for that matter Sergey too, to be willing to to really have no, I guess, hard feelings about it.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I was a little surprised by Jalosuo mentioning in her remarks that Adolski had mentioned on his way out after he had tendered his resignation. It might not have even been official at that point, but said that he wanted either Sergey or Jalosuo to get the job, which it makes me appreciate Adolski a little bit more. Like, the guy's bolting, and he's out the door, if not literally, figuratively was out the door, but he's still concerned about the welfare of the program that he's leaving. that he has significant input as to who his successor is going to be, and tabs perhaps the two likeliest candidates, which are going to be both on staff, one as head coach and one as top assistant, you would imagine, with Sergei having that role under Adolski. I would assume her seniority on the staff is going to give her that number 2 role under Jalosuo. But so the fact that Adolski didn't just leave in a vapor trail, like he was committed to the program to the extent that he wanted to see it in good hands after he left. So I thought that was definitely interesting. She had mentioned that Ratu, I mean, they go back, both Finns. I mean, it might be like a best friend situation. I think I mentioned that Ratu is the godmother of her child.
Yeah.
Played on the Gophers. Jalosuo should mention, Gopher great defender. 2 national titles. She was on the undefeated team, 12-13, with Ratu. So one national title is her last 2 years there under Frost. And then has won 2 PWHL titles with the Frost. Not Brad Frost, but with Minnesota Frost. But so Gopher bloodlines with her. But obviously a connection with Ratu. She's also worked with each of these coaches before in that 22-23 season under Adolski. Jalosuo was, it sounds like, the defensive coach that year. Makes sense. That's the position that she played. And so working on penalty kill, working with the back end, that's sort of her MO as a coach or specialty. And so, and then Emily Ock as well. So Ock's first year as assistant was last year as an official assistant. She was video coach and I think director of hockey ops on the women's side in that 22-23 season. So Jalosuo has worked with her as well. So there's a familiarity between all of the coaches, which makes the announcement of all of them retaining their assistant jobs make much more sense. Mm-hmm. And we can already see results, I think, from these decisions, because what we were fearing last month when we talked about Adolski's departure and what were the next steps, who's going to be the replacement, was, well, this opens the transfer portal open again. Coaching move enables players to enter the portal, even though it's technically closed. They can open it when a head coach departs. A month later, we haven't heard anything. It's been crickets on the transfer portal side. I might have missed something. I don't think I did, though. That speaks to keeping a consistency on the coaching staff, with all 3 of the assistants staying. Jalosuo probably had a hand in recruiting some of the players on the roster. I mean, the senior class this year would have been freshmen in Jalosuo's 1 year as the assistant under Adolski in 22-23. So there's players on this roster that have played under her. So that seems to have worked in terms of retaining all the players on roster. Perhaps it was good timing. The fact that Adolski left so late might have been a blessing in disguise, because a lot of teams are already set with their rosters at this point in the off season, and maybe there just wasn't a market, even if players wanted to try to see if there was activity in the portal. Just from a team's perspective of trying to pick up players from the portal, that sort of activity has kind of died down. So perhaps the timing of Adolski's departure was fortunate in that regard. But just from the situation St. Cloud's in terms of budget, and Schreiner kind of mentioned this as well, and have like the full runway to conduct a thorough search. Even if they did have a full runway, they might have come to this same conclusion. And I think it was a great hire, especially considering the circumstances that they're faced with the sudden departure of Adolski, but also just with the university as a whole, which we don't need to go into, but just to remind folks that St. Cloud is not the deepest pocketed, most asset heavy university or sports department. But from a personnel standpoint, I think that they really couldn't have gotten any better than this. I mentioned with Sergei kind of being my odds-on favorite, just wanting someone on staff, again, in an attempt to try to retain as much players and prevent portal losses. So you've got all your assistants still on staff, and you picked up you've hired the head coach who also has experience with part of these players and having a hand in recruiting some of these players. It's like the next best thing to having hiring the top assistant on staff is, well, just dip back the one coaching class before this. And we've got Mira Jalosuo, and the fact that she's from the PWHL, I think, is a asset too. With this program now fielding 4 players being drafted in the PWHL over the 2 years here, 3 this past summer, or just a month ago, let's say. This is a pipeline to the pros that, women's hockey really hasn't had at all, but St. Cloud in particular is a program that hasn't really had the kind of success that the Wisconsins and Minnesotas that we've mentioned so far on the show have had. Well, now we've got a situation where we're regularly fielding players drafted in the top pro leagues draft. And as a player, as players like Gentry and Ross and Ahola, which we'll touch on here in a little bit, as they get drafted, seeing with players coming behind them, they're still on roster for the Huskies, seeing that there's a head coach in place that has experience, not just coaching at the next level, but winning championships at the next level. I think that's a feather in her cap as well. And that you're darn right that's going to be used in part of her recruiting pitches. Like, we can develop you here at St. Cloud State to be drafted to the next level, because that's what St. Cloud State has done the last 2 years. So I think that's an exciting part of it too.
Yeah, they've got the facilities, they've got the knowledge on staff as well, from both, the assistants who know how to develop those players to, now the head coach who had eyes to know what, kind of headed up the scouting for the Minnesota Frost. This is what they look at for the next level. So to have that type of experience to a program that is really this cusp of kind of where they're at right now, they need to hit a home run with the hire, because with all the momentum that was built up from Adelsky's tenure, last thing you want is to have some kind of a stumble. And I think with the hire that we've got right now, I'm excited to see what's going to happen, and excited for this next season. And one line that she also said during the press conference is that we're not going to be a place that's just expected to win 1-0 or 2-1. We're expected to score 3 or 4 goals, and let's get at it. I'll be excited if that once we start turning off the offensive spigot, turning that on, and because obviously the WCHA being as deep as it is, as good as it is top heavy, but there are Mankato's making some strides, St. Thomas is making some strides, so you got to keep we got to keep the pressure on to really stay on that to make that next step, to make that NCAA tournament.
Yeah, indeed. I was a little surprised to hear that, knowing that she has a defensive background. The fact that she's throwing out potential 4-3 scores, I think is what she said, or at least like scoring 3 or 4 goals a game.
Yep.
I'm like, giddy up. Let's see it happen. And
exactly.
I would still assume that we're going to have probably more of those 2-1 type games, at least in the first year here. But the fact that they were able to prevent, as it appears, they were able to prevent any losses via the portal because of this move. And this isn't, I don't think this is even a lateral move. I think she's as good of a candidate as you could have hired, even if this was a fresh coaching search.
Yeah.
It does it do anything? I'll ask you this. So does it do anything to your expectations? Let's put those expectations pre-Adolski's move to the P-Dub. right after that, my expectations are, well, this is going to mean a hit to the program, because I was assuming that might have at least 1 or 2 losses via the portal. But it looks like that's been avoided. I would say, I don't know if I wouldn't say my expectations have improved, but I would say that my expectations are sort of on the same trajectory as how I was thinking after the season ended, right on the heels of the season ending, and assuming that Adolski was still the coach. I feel like we've still got the same sort of momentum, and even with the kind of a fresh injection of a new voice to a lot of the players on the roster, I think this could even add a win to the projected win total. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. Does this change your expectations of this season?
I don't want to get too far into our predictions podcast. And I don't know how to answer that without doing it. I still am, and I would have been on the same boat with Adolski as coach, a little bit worried about this season taking a little bit of a step back. Not a huge one, but maybe a couple of games, under 500 this time, mainly because of how much we lost on on defense. And again, not being able to score. I think goalie, I think we're fine in goal. I think switching out Ahola for Chobek, I think that's going to work out well. I don't think that's not going to be a huge miss. It looks like they're going to be still a tandem of Kariko and now Chobek to start. So Chobek, sorry, you're not getting away from a goalie tandem, and she's got to be the best goalie in ever to always be stuck in a tandem. When we look at her career numbers and be like, how did she only start X amount of games? With her time in Duluth and now St. Cloud. But I mean, again, with Taylor Larson and Dale Ross being lost there on the back end, that's a massive hit, and especially Dale Ross. So it's, and I don't want to sell Larson short either. Taylor Larson, I think did a really fine job back there as well. So, I mean, that's where I'm a little bit more worried about, and not having the soaring yet. Somebody is definitely going to have to step up, where we're looking at maybe like a Laura Zimmerman, really, stepping up. And
Sorial.
Well, Sorial and Sunderland, I think, are kind of given that
stepping up to the next level. Let's see like a 30-point season.
Sure.
Which I don't think that we're outrageous to perhaps expect that. Plus the big freshman class coming in, which again, I haven't heard that any of those commits have reneged on that commitment as a result of this coaching change. Go back a couple of months. Was that the May podcast that we had with Sydney Wolf? We went over all 10, I believe, expected incoming freshmen for the women's side, as well as the incoming men's recruits. But we were excited with the talent that we've got coming in there as well. So yeah, it is going to be an issue. The issues of offense, I think, are still going to be there. And as you're mentioning, some question marks on the back end. It's going to be an interesting season. And now with this wrinkle of a new head coach in place, again, like I said, I'm certainly not as down. My immediate reaction to Adolski's departure was, this could put you back into 7th place or something like that.
Sure.
But I feel like that worry, I've given up that, as far as like, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think we're in good hands, and I'm excited to see how this, how Jalosuo's tenure kind of develops here. And especially like when we get a sense of her recruiting, the impact of her recruiting, like as she has the reins here. This year, it's mostly going to be Adolski's recruits. And we're going to be more aware of like the X's and O's aspect of her coaching. As the years go by here, we'll be able to get the full picture here of the recruiting, the perhaps like the fundraising aspect of it, the whole picture of what all goes in, all the hats that the head coach wears at the D1 level. We'll get a sense of that. But for this year, it's a lot of flying off the seat of your pants and seeing how the actual gameplay goes. And I'm excited.
Yep. I am too. Kind of with that, we can pivot to the PWHL draft. We kind of hinted at it, but Emma Gentry goes 11th overall, maybe a little bit higher than expected, but with the third pick of the second round. So congratulations to her that she joins Toronto, the Toronto Scepters, for that. And I got a picture of her walking by Dale Ross giving a high five. Tweeted that out, and McHatton put that onto his article and doesn't follow me, so a little bit hurt by that, but is what it is. I guess you put it out there, that's fine. Dale Ross goes first pick of the fourth round, the New York Sirens, and to look at the comments on the feed of her being drafted and just everyone commenting on how ripped Dale Ross is, just it was kind of cool to see and kind of funny. And it's like, Dale Ross has some pipes on her, so it was it definitely made me laugh. And then obviously Ahola went to Ottawa in the fifth round for the fifth pick. Goaltending, just with the lack of teams, lack of positions available, kind of knew it would be a little bit later in the draft that she would go, but happy to see her. So three Huskies in the draft, and maybe the surprise for me was Kaltakova going first overall and O'Brien falling to third. The anti-WCHA was in full effect with only I guess two, with Buglioni with Ohio State going into Seattle. But any other kind of spare thoughts on the draft and with the Huskies or Kaltakova going first? But I mean, New York Sirens ended up getting both, which is a heck of a haul for them. So they're going to be definitely a team to watch out for.
Well, and that the Sirens are coached by Greg Fargo, who used to be Colgate's coach. So I could see him taking her first because he coached her at the college level. Maybe they thought that Haley Wynn was going second to Boston. So we're going to get O'Brien and Koltakova anyway. So we'll just make Koltakova the number one pick because she's my gal from Colgate. We have that history, and we'll get both of them. Perhaps your WCHA conspiracy theorizing from the last show played out, as you mentioned, with just the two in the first round. Lots of ECAC representation in there. And I was at least throwing shade on, what was it, The Athletic, their mock draft.
Yeah.
Not sure how much I was putting stock into that. Although they did nail that Michelle Karvinen, who's the 35-year-old, who's picked by Adulski. She played at North Dakota with him like 15 years ago. Playing in Europe since then. Maybe we can count her as a WCHA alum in the first round. A team that doesn't exist anymore at the D1 level with North Dakota, but Karvinen did go to Adulski when her name was on the board, and Adulski, lots of shots of him during the draft. Mm-hmm. What was it, 24 hours, 48 hours at most after he had announced the resignations from St. Cloud. He was looking like a pro coach. I'll give him that. But pretty easy to put the dots together when she was available and their history. So that was definitely interesting. But yeah, Gentry higher than I would have expected at 11. And just good to see. We thought, I put the over under at 2.5, and good to see that all three of them went, because those are the three that we were hoping would get selected. And congrats to Dale Ross and Sonia Hola and Emma Gentry, best of luck at the next level.
Exactly. We can kind of hop over to house settlement news. However, I realized because we are completely still in the off-season form.
So we're talking about whiskey today.
Whiskey.
Don't want to forget this.
Whiskey.
I don't want to get any more hate mail than I got a couple of months ago during the off-season podcast where I forgot the whiskey review. So got to make sure to get this taken care of. So we are going to be heading to France. So
Francais, do you say?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's from the Champagne region. I should have taken a look to see if this is champagne whiskey.
Maybe it's from, isn't bourbon, isn't that a French term originally? The Bourbon Royal Dynasty?
I have never heard of that before.
I think like Louis the 16th. I think. Bourbon Kings. I'm going to try to Google that.
Louis the 16th.
The House of Bourbon. The dynasty that originated in the King of France.
Ah, no kidding.
So who would have been? Was it?
How did that turn into a American whiskey then?
It's a long Wikipedia page, as it turns out. I'm not sure. I would have to feed it to ChatGPT, perhaps, to give me. I'm more of an American historian rather than a European historian.
Oh, you don't want to go back to the 1400s of France?
Yeah, 250 years is enough of a history time frame for me. But that's a good question on how. But I am seeing that bourbon, the beverage, is derived from the House of Bourbon. So
no kidding.
There's some Spanish.
The House of Bourbon is what I call my basement.
So that was a show. I think that was a blues show on VH1 back in the day. The House of Bourbon.
Oh, House of Blues.
I just made that up. Yeah,
was
it's something like that.
House of Blues was a restaurant. My mom got food poisoning at a House of Blues in California once.
And that's why there's no more House of Blues locations anymore.
So here we go. France whiskey. How is it? It's fine. I mean, it's kind of a more of a yellowish, clearish type of a color on the whiskey. The nose, it's all right. It's not abrasive. I'd probably give it I think 7's too high. So I'll probably give it like a 6.9.
So just one tick under a 7.
Just
6.9. Nice.
I don't think a 7 is right for this. I think just underneath. It's not. It's definitely. It definitely isn't the Israel 4.6 or the Finland 3.2. Like, it's miles better than this. Like, I would drink this and I'll be.
I think because it's France, it's not miles better, it's kilometers better. They're on the metric system.
That's true. The metric system, yeah. It's kilometers better than the Finland one. So right. I'm sorry, Mira, but your whiskey's bad. So, and
that whiskey, the Costco air quotes Finnish whiskey, because I'm still skeptical that this is actually authentic whiskeys around the world, but that is not. I'm sure Mira Jalosuo would be able to point you in the direction of some good Finnish whiskey, because it's got to be out there.
Yeah. So, maybe Mira can give you the. Maybe when she gives you that, maybe the non-conference schedule that Adulski left you on red. Maybe.
Well, actually, maybe that was his last act. Was he dumped off the non-conference schedule? Not on me, but on someone.
So you didn't get a reply.
I did not get a reply. No, but I randomly looked on the St. Cloud State website one day, and lo and behold, the women's the full schedule for the women's hockey team was posted without any sort of fanfare. But I do have that, and I'm just pulling it up. It's we've got that was July 10th is when I posted that, and I said 70 days till puck drop. So we're at 58 days till puck drop. But September 19th,
57 by the time you're listening to it.
Home versus Lindenwood.
Okay.
19th and the 20th. That's a Friday and Saturday. The next week, Friday and Saturday, play at UConn. And then we did know this. We just didn't know which days they were playing which team. But the Washington, D.C. area tournament, or not really tournament, because they're set games. It's not like you don't know who you're going to play based on who wins the first game. But they're playing Colgate on the 28th of November, and they're playing Clarkson on the 29th. And again, that's I believe it's the Washington Capitals practice facility. But they've had
some huge games.
Well, and don't sleep on UConn either. I mean, they made their first tournament, first ever hockey team appearance in the NCAA tournament for UConn, men or women, was in 2024.
Yeah, suck it.
When they took Duluth, I think they took Duluth to a double overtime. I think there was a waved off goal in that game. I remember being upset at Duluth getting a break in that one.
Never.
And then
Duluth getting a break in an NCAA tournament game?
No, that would be very un-Duluth-like of them. And then UConn came into this year. They win the Hockey East regular season title. Hockey East, not a great league. UConn was the sole representative of Hockey East in the tournament in 24. But then UConn wins the regular season Hockey East title, and then by chance, this was not based on their winning the league. It was just predetermined that they were hosting the Hockey East tournament at UConn, but they ended up losing in that Hockey East tournament. But still, a good program, a program on the rise. Those are not going to be. It's not like Lindenwood, where feel like those are going to be 2 wins for the Huskies. When you're playing the UConn Huskies, the St. Cloud State Huskies, it'd be a Husky on Husky matchup. But at UConn, that's going to be a tough series for them. And then you've got Colgate and Clarkson, both tournament teams from last year, and tournament teams basically every year for the last decade between them, close to it at least. And so what we've been, during the Adolski era, it was the non-conference, and it's not even something that we would fault Adolski for kind of easing up on the non-conference, because your conference schedule is a capital G gauntlet. But went the other way, putting the slate together this year. Those are going to be, just 2 home games, and the other 4 games are going to be, you win any of those games, it's going to be a big pairwise boost, because I think UConn is going to be decent, and I think Colgate and Clarkson will be very good. So a little bit different, a little bit surprising that they loaded up on the non-conference, but excited to see it. Iron sharpens iron. You're going to be better if you play the best. So excited to see it. And at least we've got opening day. We've got a date on the calendar that we can circle, and we're looking forward to it. September 19th at the Herb against the Lions. Be there.
As the great philosopher Flair, Rick once said, to be the man, woo, you got to beat the man. So that's I think that's what the philosopher has said.
I think that Mr. Flair, he made a cameo appearance in the Whiskey Sounder, doesn't he?
Oh,
he's one of the woos.
Is that the same Flair? Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
It might be. I'm not sure. So, it might be.
SCSU, kind of interesting news as the House settlement decisions have gone through. SCSU opts in and everything that means. And 8 of the 9 NCHC teams opted in. The one lone holdout is Omaha, which from what I've read from Omaha and Omaha fans, it seems like it's more of a, we're going to wait and see how the tea leaves go and how everything shakes out before going in. But looks like SCSU is one that kind of opts in. Andrew, do you have like a rundown of what all this means? Like, because
Sure.
I get a little bit confused with it, because I know it has to do with roster limits and then NIL and paying, and all of this is like maybe a little bit over the head, and I probably should have paid more attention to it, but it just means like we can directly pay players. Is that kind of the basis, or is there a little bit more nuance to it?
Yes. Yeah. So it is a bit of an abstruse topic. The house settlement. So it is a legal settlement. This was a civil lawsuit that was a gentleman by the name of House is his last name. This doesn't refer to like the House representatives or like a physical house somewhere. It's a guy named House who was a Division I athlete. I think he was a swimmer. I'm not exactly sure. No, it was an NCAA athlete.
Okay. Wasn't Gregory House.
It was not Dr. House. It was not.
Okay. All right.
I don't
think. Did you ever watch House?
Yes.
I watched a fair amount of House.
Yeah, not a ton, but I might have even watched the first episode of it for some reason. But yeah, not that actually. House.
That's actually where I got the joke of the philosopher. That actually comes from House, so it's all full circle, because I think House says the philosopher Jagger once said, "You can't always get what you want." That was a House, so it's a House reference that I made.
Well, I think this house, I think was related. It may be not in blood, but by spirit, because he really gave a dose of medicine to the NCAA. At least the Power 5 schools. So this lawsuit is old enough that it was the defendants in that suit were then the Power 5 conferences, including the Pac-12, which is still technically like on paper exists, but all but 2 of those schools have gone to other conferences since this lawsuit was initiated. So the defendants are all 5 of those conferences. So Big 10, SEC, ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12. So all of those schools, they didn't have a choice to opt in. They were defendants in this suit and need to follow the terms of the House settlement. This House settlement is a 10-year settlement. So this will not go on forever. This is going to be for 10 years. In it, the defendants were made to pay something like $2.5 billion over the 10 years to the plaintiffs in the case. Will be past NCAA players. I don't know how far back it goes. It goes further back than when 2020, I think, is when it was filed. But it goes back maybe 5 or 10 years prior to that. So players or athletes who played the NCAA level at those schools within whatever the time period that the settlement dictated can get some money from this. And those schools, all of those Power 5 schools, are going to be paying. It's not like they each pay $2.5 billion, of course, but it's all going to be split up between those, 60, 70 schools, probably all told. But then as it goes forward, the terms and what schools like St. Cloud State are opting into are the terms that this House settlement will be governed by for the next 10 years until this lawsuit is paid off and completed. And so let's see. So that's sort of the settlement aspect of it. When you're opting into it, you can, this was a revenue sharing model. That's what you're opting into, meaning you can share revenue with your student athletes. There's a max per year for each school is max can pay out a max of, I think it's $20.5 million to their student athletes on a yearly basis as a part of this deal. For St. Cloud State, that's not going to make much of a difference. I'm trying to put the big points, and then I'm trying to also localize it to St. Cloud State's effect.
Sure.
So we'll just go with the big points first. So they are able to directly pay players through shares of revenue going forward. The nil collectives, which is how student athletes would be paid prior to the settlement, those are all third party controlled, not technically by the university. Sometimes they were very thinly not affiliated with the university. Those can still exist, and they still will exist. But with the revenue sharing direction, just makes it easier for the schools to directly pay players. So just to keep it simple, this settlement enables schools to directly pay their players. There is a cap on that. From St. Cloud State's perspective, they're never going to be in any danger of getting to the cap. If they ever get to the cap of maxing out their revenue sharing for the year, we've hit the big time for St. Cloud State. That will never happen. We've just lost another interim president. We're on the look for the third interim president in the last 4 years, I think it is.
Yeah.
We don't have $20 million really we barely have $20 million as a endowment, which includes like all of your physical assets, buildings and whatnot. We're talking about $20 million per year that schools, our max, can pay out in revenue sharing to student athletes. So there's that. And then as perhaps the consequence of that is the issues with roster caps. The benefit there is this goes from a maximum of 18 full-time equivalent scholarships. That was the previous cap on scholarships, at least for hockey. It's I'm sure different for other sports. We're just talking about hockey. 18 was the maximum amount of scholarships that a program could offer. Now, again, you can have your roster and that's full-time equivalent. So that means you can pay 18 full ride scholarships to players, or that means you can have 36 players on half scholarships. See what I mean? Like any way you can add up to get to 18 full-time scholarships. That was the cap prior to this House settlement. Now it's 26. So you get 8 more full-time equivalent scholarships to hand out to your roster. But the roster is capped at a hard 26. Most teams prior to this, their rosters would be in excess of 26. So looking at St. Cloud State, they've been as high as 29 over the last 10 or 15 years, usually around 27, 28 of their players. So I think that's the one downside. When this settlement was first being reported, McMahon, this was first being reported last year, 2024, around this time. And that was where guys like McMahon were really focusing on, this is kind of the downside to the settlement, because 26 is a roster cap for hockey that is going to be tough. It's going to mean players potentially will lose roster spots to try to get down to maximum of 26.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that 26 is those are your 26 people. So if you lose people, you can't bring more people in mid-season.
Right. Someone gets hurt. Too bad.
So you can't call up somebody halfway through from the USHL, bring him in early for a half season, burn a year of eligibility. You're shorthanded for the rest of the season. So
correct. And so I think a lot of coaches, at least for the hockey respect, because this House settlement had hockey as a distant thought. Again, when we're talking about NCAA issues, nil, all this, football, basketball are the main sports to be considered here. Making a 26-man roster cap for basketball, no sweat. That's well in excess of what is necessary to field a basketball team for a season. The hockey folks were, and other sports, baseball, I'm sure is another sport that would have balked at that. No pun intended. But for some sports, that's a tougher cap to face. So it seems like one of the last things that was hammered out in the settlement before it was finalized, sort of the end of June, was this concept of the designated student athlete. So it seems like this is an on-ramp to getting into full compliance with the House settlement. So this is only a temporary measure. But if you were a player that the school was going to cut to get down to the 26-man roster limit, or if it was a player, so if they were on roster last year in the 24-25 season and you were going to cut him because you needed to get down under 26, or if you were a incoming freshman who was guaranteed a roster spot, but then was going to have that revoked so the school would be able to get down to 26, you can designate those players as what they call designated student athletes, DSA. And those players, the school has to officially designate that player with that label. Once that player is designated with the DSA label, you can have those players do not count towards the 26 player roster cap. So St. Cloud, for instance, last year had 27 players on their roster. So you're looking at like a guy like Ocean Wallace, probably. If the 26-man roster cap was hard and fast for this year, and there was no exceptions to that, I'm sure a guy, let's just use Wallace as the example, he probably would have been the guy to say, sorry, we're going to let you go. And it's kind of unfair to him. Like, he enters NCAA hockey under one set of rules and then is sort of a victim of this new rule. I think this provision was worked out as a way to throw these types of guys, these fringe guys, throw them a bone, have them still basically retain their eligibility, because it'd be difficult for them to find a job. Find a space on a roster, contracted roster, and whatnot. So they can label those guys as DSAs. Those DSAs are free to transfer to anyone else. I believe, too, as reading up on this, I believe once you designate a guy a DSA, that automatically puts them into the portal for a little short time. If they do transfer anywhere, they still retain that DSA label, and whatever team they go to, they would still be classified as the DSA and not be subject to the roster cap. So it gives them security in a sense, but it also kind of gives them a red A, a scarlet letter, like we were going to cut you. So it's not like there's not going to be a loophole here. You're not going to, like, St. Cloud's not going to be able to designate Austin Bernovic as their DSA just so he doesn't factor into the roster cap. Like, you've got to be aware of the situation, and you can't just do it willy-nilly. And it's only, like I said, it's only going to really be in effect until the players that were either on the roster last year or incoming freshmen this year. So at most, this DSA designation thing is going to be a thing for only 4 years. It's eventually going to go away. But that's I think a big part of this, because I think for a team like St. Cloud, who, from their perspective, the money aspect of this, in terms of being able to give more scholarship money or offer more scholarships to players, or to participate in revenue sharing, these are kind of, rich people problems, rich program problems that St. Cloud doesn't really have the luxury to participate in. And I was surprised that they did opt in, because I was figuring that the roster cap, which if you opt out, you're not bound by the 26 player roster cap. You're free to go as high as you'd like. You are still bound to the 18 scholarship cap, but you are not bound by a hard cap on your roster, which the House settlement does dictate. So I was figuring that St. Cloud would feel like the roster cap would have been too much of a trade-off, because they're not really in a position to throw a lot of money around. So I was a little surprised when they did opt in. When I did learn about this DSA thing, which means that you can essentially grandfather in your current roster. You don't have to make those tough decisions. You don't have to kick Ocean Wallace to the curb. That makes it more sense. It makes it more sense that they did opt in, because I don't think, long story short, I don't think this is going to be a huge impact on St. Cloud State. Because of what I've just said, as far as the roster, the big effect short term would have been a guy like Ocean Wallace being off the team. Now even that is taken care of, and Wallace will not be gone, as far as I can tell. And you can play the next couple of years over 26 as long as these guys are designated as such. And so you're not going to be crimped with the smaller roster than you had imagined when you're doing this recruiting class in the last couple of years. Longer term, it's going to play more of an effect because you do have to play that 26 span roster limit that will become hard and fast in 3 or 4 years when this designated student athlete thing goes away. You are potentially not going to be able to offer as many offers to guys in juniors, recruits. You're going to have to maybe limit your recruiting class, and Mike Hastings' hardest hit there, I think. The Wisconsin types of recruiting classes of over recruiting these cycles, that's probably going to wean off a little bit. Some of that too takes care of itself. We saw like Anthony Cardilli, who was a recruit for St. Cloud. He went up, flamed out in juniors, didn't do much in juniors, and is no longer listed as a commit for St. Cloud State. A lot of these guys. So when you are recruiting a lot of guys, you can't expect that 100% of those recruits are eventually going to come to campus. Like, we're still waiting for Mitch Slattery to show up to St. Cloud State. But some of these recruits take care of themselves naturally, and they never appear at St. Cloud. But from the longer term, like, this house settlement does dictate a smaller roster cap in the future. So that is going to play it's going to have a little bit of an effect. But from the money aspect, I don't think it has a ton of impact from St. Cloud just because they don't have the money to do so. From the roster cap, like I said, you've got an on-ramp here. You don't have to make those drastic decisions on 1 or 2 guys for this coming season or maybe the next year or two. Further down the road, you just got to maybe limit your willingness to offer potential recruits and stay within that 26-man spot or roster cap. The fact that you're able to offer up to 26 scholarships on paper is a good thing. Again, if you have the money, if you have the means to do so, I think that's a good thing. But I do think that it's largely not going to have, we're not going to, from an on-ice product standpoint and a roster development standpoint, I don't think we're going to see too much of a difference by opting in. And I should also mention, I know I'm being long-winded. I hope this is making sense to you and to the listeners, but this is a year-to-year thing. Like, next year, opting in does not mean you're opting in forever. Every year, there's a deadline, I think, of March 30th, I was reading. Every year, you've got to make the decision. So next year, if St. Cloud reevaluates and they no longer want to participate in this, go back to 18 scholarships, they can do that. Same with, like you were mentioning, Omaha opted out this year. They could reevaluate after next year and decide to opt in. I think we'll probably see teams going back, opting out, then maybe opting in. Maybe the biggest surprise among teams that opted out was Boston University. I could see them perhaps opting in when the time comes next year, as long as that they were just kind of going along with their Patriot League, the league that they play most of their sports in. That league as a whole sort of opted out. So maybe they didn't even have much of a choice in the matter. St. Cloud's unique too in, like I'm mentioning, Power 5 schools had no choice here. There were defendants in the settlement. They had to opt in. There was no choice for them to do so. But for these teams like St. Cloud, who are D2, they were able, and I think this played a factor in St. Cloud's opting in as well. They can opt in only for their D1 programs. Mm-hmm. So this is only in effect for the hockey team. This has no effect on any of basketball or any of their other sports. This only plays a part in men's and women's hockey. So that I think limits the scope of all of the effects of the house settlement. That potentially plays a role. That's obviously the same for all the other like NCHC schools that we heard opt in, like Duluth and CCU's a D3 college. Only affects their D1 sports. So again, that may have played a role. I'm tired of talking. What's your take on all this? From my perspective, like, it might have just been easier to opt in because we wouldn't have to answer questions on why we opted out. It might have been just that easier to just say it and just get it done with. It's not going to make much of a difference anyway. let's just opt in. And if it's a big failure, we see some roadblocks coming ahead, we can always opt out next year. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I think I do find it, maybe I do wonder if they do have an internal cap of like scholarship where they don't want to go internally above 22. So a little bit more breathing room than 18, but just maybe internally they're like, yeah, let's try to keep it below that. But yeah, it's, the more I read about it, just anything when it comes to NIL and all the money that's kind of being thrown along. And, I guess we can just kind of, I'll bring up what our next topic would probably be, is about the whole CHL influx and Gavin McKenna. How reportedly he got paid about $750,000 allegedly to go to commit to Penn State to play their non-conference schedule, I would imagine. So I think like going at that aspect is like, St. Cloud can now play their players and that aspect. It's just, I do agree with your sentiment of it's probably best not to feel those questions and have that option if you need to, or, versus I don't think there's a lot of drawbacks to it versus, you have that door open, I guess is just kind of the best way to go about it. And it's like, you've got more options, and I'm always a fan of just having more options. But everyone now is talking about the Big Ten and, all the money that's being flown around the Big Ten in buying players for one and done seasons.
Right. Yeah. All of this, like 26 scholarship limit, the revenue sharing cap. These aren't things that are requirements. Like St. Cloud is not required to give out 26 scholarships. It is just, as you mentioned, it's just an option that they can do that. Where it comes with the requirements, like you must pay this, that's all the big boys. That's the Power Five. We saw like the Gophers article about them have like an $8 million athletics budget shortfall. It's not going to help those kind of schools, which then I saw that the response from the university was to jack up student activity fees. It's a plug for Cloud Coverage Hockey on Substack. I'm starting a series on St. Cloud State attendance, and there is some good stuff, I thought.
There was some very good stuff.
St. Cloud State activity fees.
If you guys haven't checked out, and Andrew, put that in the description of the show notes.
I will.
Definitely pimp it out, because first off, love the name. Cloud Coverage, like I thought that was really clever. And I was like, do you want to rename the podcast? You want to rename it to the Cloud Coverage Podcast? We can discuss it.
I wouldn't mind it. I've got the logo.
I
like the logo.
Yeah, I like the logo. I like the name, and I think it fits.
We had a discussion about. I think when we first started it 8 years ago or whatever it was. I think we just wanted something very simple. Huskies Hockey Podcast. But there's a lot of Huskies out there. Like, people probably like talking about UConn, or maybe they're thinking it's a UConn. Having Cloud or St. Cloud in there would probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll have this conversation.
Cloud coverage. I like it. Anyway. But yeah, the talk about the students getting in free, and then the back and forth about the editorials and what you found for the University Chronicle and the editorial pages, or the opinion pages, and the fight about raising the activity fees to cover it. It was enlightening. It was really fun to read. So kudos to you.
And a fun project to research. I'm really getting into it. Reading old newspapers is really fun. I'm having a ball doing it. And the old Chronicle, pouring out for it, because I think it's only online only. All of that, I put the link in the last article, but I think from 2019 back, all of those archived Chronicle editions are digitized and freely available. And I will admit, I put in, and searchable by keyword, very handy. And I will admit, I searched Travis Weldon
God,
for
that's gotta
a
be
couple
cringe.
of them. There was one I almost sent it to you. Maybe I will anyway. But this was in the right before the 2007 NCAA tournament. So this is the first tournament the men's team had played in a while, since 2003. And you're all just, it was like a hype article. Like, everyone's so hype. And I honestly think that your sourcing for the article was just your roommates. Because it was Zamora.
I will 100%
it was Zamora.
Agree with that.
It was Zamora. It was your buddy Art, who you've mentioned to me as well. And it was somebody else, but I'm like, I think he just like was like in this living room and he needed to crank out an article. And he's like, Eric, what do you think about the Huskies playing Maine? He's like, I think we're gonna do it this time. I'll send you the article. It was a hoot.
I think.
But,
was the other one Neary?
It may have been. Actually, that does ring a bell. It probably was. I think you had 3 dudes quoted. Zamora, I know, and Art you've mentioned. And there's one other, and I'm like, I think this is how we got this article. And I'm sure you guys were all, it just was very disappointing after they turned in a clunker against me.
Yeah, I remember. And I also remember the like interviewing Zamora, and Zamora just went off. Like
he was the main quote in that.
It was like a 45-minute discussion with him about it. Like he just went off. I wonder if I still have my tape recorder somewhere. Like one of those stupid things that I still have about it. It's that. And then when I was the beat writer for the volleyball team, and
you must have been were you the beat writer for the River Bats?
Yeah.
Your name for your name on River Bats recaps.
Yeah.
Now the St. Cloud Rocks, the summer baseball team.
Yeah. Looking back, I probably should have done more. I don't know. I should have done more features instead of just game recaps. Like that was kind of, looking back at that is, I have some like weird things that stick out to me as like regrets in life, even though that they're like really mundane. That's one of them. It's like, just rattling off a week's worth of what happened during the games is just kind of ridiculous versus, actually trying to drum up support. Anyway, it was the summer chronicle and nobody really read it anyway, so it didn't matter.
No. Again, I'm having quite a fun time just looking back on those, like especially like the early 90s. Obviously I wasn't on campus during that time. One thing is interesting. It sounds like, or it appears that 1997 was about the time where the Chronicles started to refer to it as SCSU. Prior to that, it was SCS. Which is so weird. Like when I read it, it doesn't seem right. But you look at like anything from 96 and past or beyond that, before that, I should say, like it's all SCS is in headlines. SCS. Someone must have made a concerted effort to rebrand at some point, because I've always known it as SCSU. But those kind of things are interesting, and it's fun. I will say, if you're on the seat of your pants, but the next chapter in that series of articles on attendance, it might be a little bit. I've come to the conclusion that I have theories on what happened, like in the late aughts, early 2000s. But I feel like the information is verifiable. So I've put in records and data requests from the university to try to nail it down for good. I feel like I'd rather wait, see if the data is actually available, that I can I don't have to speculate. I can actually report on something rather than that. And that might take a little time and it might take a little money, but I'm willing to do so because it's a interesting project that I'm pretty excited about. But so where were we?
I don't remember.
Talking house settlement money. St. Cloud State. We're talking about St. Cloud State in some regard, but Then we got sidetracked.
Then we got par for the course for this. I don't know, something CHL. So, Gavin McKenna, his decision, and now just opening up the floodgates. And I haven't really talked about my thoughts about the CHL and it opening. And
we were talking about student activity fees, by the way, but
there we go.
CHL. And let's talk about that.
So yeah, let's do that now. Gavin, he's the presumed number one pick overall. Rumors floating around that Penn State paid $750,000 for him to join the squad, which I find. The other reported number was Michigan State offered about 250. So that's a little bit of a gap. And how would you like to be Penn State to be like, ooh, we might have overpaid here. So, I am probably going to break it down by point, how much money that they have paid per point. McKenna, because, you got to think about, do you think Gavin McKenna pulls off a 75-point season? $10,000 a point. It would be. That's a heck of a season. Not impossible. But in this day and age,
Will Smith broke 70 in 2023-24, and that was the first time that someone had broken 70, I think, since Gaudreau. Mm-hmm. And Gaudreau was the last player to break 80. I know that. Going back to maybe Paul Correa, like a while. 75 is a lot. It's possible. You mentioned, I don't know if you were joking when you mentioned Penn State's Charbon's schedule. It was released. Did you see it? Because it's pretty soft.
Yeah, their non-conference is pretty soft. You did a really good breakdown. You said it's not the softest.
They're going to Arizona State. Part of the McKenna news affects my wallet. It's going to affect my wallet a little bit. Not only McKenna's wallet, but mine a little bit as well, because I was planning on going to that Arizona State Penn State season opener, because when am I ever going to see Penn State play? They ain't ever going to play St. Cloud in the regular season. We know that for sure. So I felt like this was my only time that I'd be able to go to a Penn State game. Well, that's going to be the season opener, and it's going to be the debut of McKenna. That's going to be a hot ticket, I would imagine. So I might have to pay.
You think so? Even in Arizona, you think?
From Arizona State's perspective, I think that they're just sort of peaking as a hockey. Yeah, their hockey interest, I think, is peaking after last year. So it might have been a sellout even without McKenna, but I think that will. There might be a national reporter or two for that game just because it's his college debut. We should mention, so McKenna makes his announcement on SportsCenter. I realize that, segmented media market that we have nowadays, SportsCenter isn't the same that it was, let's say, in 1996. But appointment TV for us millennials back in the day. But when's the last time a college commit made his announcement on SportsCenter?
Yeah, that's true.
It's uncharted territory for NCAA hockey, and I think it's a good thing. I don't really see the bad from a college hockey as a whole standpoint. Do you think the McKenna story is anything but a home run for NCAA hockey?
From that aspect, yeah, I agree.
I'll get to the other shoe drop in here. The other big thing is that it isn't a traditional power. It's not a hockey blue blood. Mm-hmm. I think that's another aspect. If this was BC or Michigan, I think that'd be one thing. Penn State is not usually in those names when we're talking about hockey. I would feel like that's a plus. The shoe drop for me is literally Penn State. a team that I effing can't stand as from a hockey program perspective. The fact that they, they've got the deep pocketed Terry Pagula, fronts them the money for the arena. And then this past year was their sixth Allentown regional they bought. It would have been seventh. There was one in 2020 that was nixed by the virus. They got another one coming up in a couple of years. Like, they just keep shelling out money for these regionals.
Was the bracketology, was Arizona State going to be placed in Allentown?
They did play the one time that Arizona State made the tournament in 2019 when they were still independent. They played in Allentown. Funny enough. I don't believe Penn State made it that year to the tournament, but they make Frozen Four last year. I gotta think that had something to do with it here. Like, they think they're interpreting their Frozen Four run as, aha, we've made it. I would just pump the brakes on winning 2 random games at a place that you bought. You've shelled out money to the NCAA to get those games, and as a 4 seed playing in front of a partisan crowd against a 1 and a 2 seed. I can save that rant for another episode, but the fact that, and Godowski, I can't stand. If it would have been any other team other than Penn, I probably would have been. If it was like a BC or a Michigan, it'd sting less, just from my personal perspective, just because it was.
What if you went to Minnesota? What if you went to Montana?
That would hurt. I mean, I think sounds like the Gopher fans are getting a little antsy. They haven't had any of these CHL rumors. No, it doesn't look like Bob's interested in going above the border here for recruiting.
Let's switch that up to Larson too, because Larson's been quiet on that as well. Now, I look at CHL as, the CHL is comprised up of 3 leagues. There's, the Western Hockey League, the Ontario, and the Quebec Maritime, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, blah, blah, blah.
The Q. Just call it the Q.
Yeah, they call it the Q. So, when you're looking at like draft, teams draft, and you look at it, those leagues are divided up just like, and they'll say USHL. So USHL, WHL, so it's like 3 extra leagues of talent pools that you do have the option of now playing college sports when they were previously ineligible. It used to be a one-way street. Now it isn't. So now with the talent pool opening, I have been on record by saying that anytime a talent pool is deeper, I like it. One other aspect that I didn't really think about it, and I think Schlossman brought it up in College Hockey Today's podcast, when it was like, when, CHL, usually it's about 16 to 20-year-olds. Is that so? You can declare for the CHL draft, and that's divided up by, like I said, by territory, by region of what province you're born in, or what province you're from. There's nuance to it, but that's just kind of generally the how it's divided up. But I mean, you're 15 declaring for a draft, or 14 if you get special exemption because you're just that good, a la McDavid or something along those lines. But I mean, to cut off a line of players coming in because of a decision that they made at 15, to put that as ineligible to get a college education in the United States, maybe I'm leaning into that student athlete, that NCAA loves so much, maybe a little bit too much, but I don't think that's fair to them. And, to have that deeper pool, I think is a good option. Now, how are all of those players going to play and transition to playing against older players, and, pumping out iron and drinking smoothies? And that is just going to be really kind of interesting to tell. Overall, I feel like it's a positive aspect, but to say that, we're not tapping into that enough already, I just feel like it's a little bit too soon. I I'm happy with where we're at from a recruiting standpoint at this point. And
we meaning you're talking St. Cloud State
St. Cloud
in particular
State,
right now. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You just have more options now, and that's just going to raise the talent level overall. I believe. What I find interesting is that I don't know which way this is going to fall. Whereas in my head, I thought it would be people go through the CHL, and then when they turn 19, that 20, then they'll take the college route and do more. Now McKenna's doing it the opposite. Is you light up, and then now Porter Martoni, I don't exactly know. He's going to Michigan State to fill Isaac Howard, who signed and left, much to the delight
traded
of,
and then signed.
Yes, much to the delight of Duluth fans. So, but now it's like I light up this league at put up 80 some points, at 17 now, and cut off a couple of years of CHL to go to college hockey and play. I find that aspect, I guess I didn't think it would go that route, but now some of the top end players, which is what the CHL is kind of worried about. Now, on the other hand, Omaha, they're Pete Rose diving in head first, going into, using this, going into the CHL and even going to U Sports, to fill out next year's roster, because they're going to have 15, 16, 17 new players in general on that squad. And, I think over half of them are going to be what was previously
like 10 Canadians, either U Sports or CHL players coming to Omaha this fall.
So it's going to be a wait and see approach, and it's going to be up to, it's going to make the scouting just so much harder for all teams, but to have that option and I think overall is going to be good. But I'm not looking too deep into the fact that they're not getting enough CHL players when we don't know what the full aspect is of that, where that's going to be.
Yeah, we actually had a discussion on this that I recently re-listened to after the McKenna news. We talked about it like last November. It's very interesting what you're talking, because that you're remembering your previous position quite well.
Oh, okay. So I didn't flip-flop on anything. All right, nice.
No,
I'm consistent.
It wasn't an argument per se, but
sure,
it was more when it was announced that the door is going to be open. No. The movement hadn't really started at that point. And my thing was, this might be a rich get richer situation. And you're like, why? I said, well, if this is a recruiting issue, generally, if it's a recruiting issue, that, the big boys will benefit more than the smaller guys. And you said, actually, I think it's going to be more something that does benefit the mid to smaller schools, because you imagine, which I think was correct at the time, the perception then was it's mostly going to be overagers that are going to go from the CHL to the NCAA. These 20-year-olds can't play in CHL anymore, not quite ready for the AHL. NCAA is like a perfect middle ground for that kind of player. I even said on the show, this isn't going to mean that Connor Bedard, I mentioned his name, like he's not going to play at the NCAA level. McKenna might be a bigger prospect than Bedard was. It's pretty close, I think. And it turns out that he is playing, and
at least,
not just him, but North Dakota is it Keaton Verhoff? I think he's projected to be maybe a top 2 or 3 pick next year. Top defenseman. He committed to North Dakota a month or 2 ago. It seems like the floodgates really opened late spring, early summer this year, where it was top 10 projected draft picks were making the move. Canadian players committing to NCAA programs, and the ones that were committing those type of players were the usual suspects, the big boys, North Dakotas, Big Ten schools. And that was we were in agreement there. We didn't feel like the CHL opening up to NCAA was going to lead to these high-end Canadian recruits joining NCAA. Certainly not as fast as what has played out. Like the fact that we're probably going to get the number 1 overall draft pick for next year's draft to play in NCAA this year. Certainly, if you would have told us that that player was going to play at Penn State, we would have been surprised by that. So, I mean, I do think 80 to 90% of these Canadian players that have committed to NCAAs has fit into that first bucket. More the overage players, like all those Omaha guys, are more in the 20-year-old range. Probably not going to get drafted. Like they're not real draft pick type prospects. And 80 to 90%, like I said, of those kind of players that have committed to NCAA, that have CHL experience, are in that bucket. But that other 10%, and it's growing by the day here, as you mentioned, Martone made his decision earlier this week to go to Michigan State. At least Michigan State found someone to take that $250K. We're not sure what exactly the price tag was on him, but he's expected, or he was just drafted this year. Martone, 5 or 6 overall, I believe. So now it's I think this season's going to be a big, it's going to be a big effect on how it continues to play out. If McKenna, I don't think he's going to struggle, but if somehow the adjustment isn't a good one for him, we saw like James Hagens last year. If at this point last year, I think even during our World Juniors preview with Baskin, I think we were both like, Hagens going number 1, right? Kind of presumptive number 1, and he drops to 7 to this draft. I don't think McKenna's going to drop that far, but let's say he goes to 3 instead of 1 because, he puts up 50 points instead of 80 at the NCAA level. That would potentially tell other recruits in his kind of boat, the elite generational type talent, perhaps the pump and iron and drinking smoothies route isn't the best way to secure a number 1 overall draft pick in the NHL draft. So, it's gonna, this year is gonna play a big influence on how future prospects will navigate this system. And one thing too, I think before the big names made their move, one, I think, fear of these players was, maybe they'll get to Christmas and they'll get sick of just playing on weekends and the light workload. They'll miss it and they'll bolt. They'll go Kyle Okposo and they'll either turn pro midway through the year, or maybe they'll go back to the CHL. I would assume, I mean, if Penn State's paying that kind of money to McKenna, there's probably some sort of contract in place that rules that possibility out. They would be smart to do so.
I hope not. I hope he just plays 1 weekend and then just goes back to,
like, in the 700 was guaranteed if just he played 1 game. Yeah. So, I mean, contracts, I've mentioned this maybe last year, like we're going to get to that point. If we're not at that point already, we're going to that point pretty quick with all this money that's being going around, house settlement and whatnot. You're paying players this kind of money. There's going to be agents and contracts and terms and stipulations that you've got to agree. And there's going to be lawsuits on breach of contract. I mean, it's going to get very legal very quickly here. With all this, but with those kind of high end guys, you're going to have those kind of things. With the Omaha bucket of players, this first year, again, if it's something where they're not clicking, it's the adjustment to the older league, as you said, with the NCAA versus CHL. If that's not proving to be the kind of development path that a lot of hockey folks seem to think it is, this could boomerang pretty quickly. I don't think it will. I'm pretty confident that this is the new normal and we should get used to this. Yeah. And from St. Cloud's perspective, as you mentioned, I'll give Larson a year here until I, maybe kind of get antsy that he's passing up a potential recruiting area. I mean, there's only so much you can do in terms of your numbers, and especially now with the house settlement terms. you're especially limited in terms of available roster spots. It could have just been that he had his class recruited for this year and he's not really interested. I did see that. I think it's Hunter Randolph, I think it is, future recruit. He's, I think, just 16. I think Larson recruited him, or the announcement was made the end of last year, November-ish, December-ish of 2024. It was announced, I believe it was him that was announced that he's going to play in the WHL. And so again, that's a route. You're not just limited to in the States in terms of like the top junior league being the USHL. Those kind of players, who I believe Randolph is a Fargo prospect or native. So he's going to check out. Yeah, so he's going to check out Canadian juniors, and so he's going to get some development taking place up there, and so from one sense, an indirect sense, that we will be getting a recruit with CHL experience, in a few years. But as future years open up and more recruiting spots are available, I don't see a reason why I should think that Larson's not going to target that as a potential spot. I don't think so. It's different. I think the Motzko situation when you are part of the blue blood club, and you see, especially from the Gophers' perspective, with Michigan State and Penn State making these big waves, landing these kind of recruits, and Motzko's kind of just sitting there empty-handed. Who knows how much he's actually attempted to do so. We've mentioned that the Gophers have run into some budget issues with their athletic department. Maybe it's not something that's in the cards that they can shell out six figures to these kinds of recruits. Wasn't too long ago, Logan Cooley was getting Chipotle money, and that was a big deal. Times have changed. Life moves at you pretty fast, as a wise person once said. And so, I think if I was a Gopher fan, I'd be a little bit more angsty at this point. But from St. Cloud's perspective, you're never going to be in the market for McKenna from St. Cloud, from the Huskies' perspective. But hey, those 10 guys that Omaha got, I'm sure some of those, or if not all of those, could have found a home at St. Cloud, and kinds of players that St. Cloud would be interested in. We'll see if this is a route that Larson decides to tap into here in the future. Yeah. But I'll give it a year. I'll give it a year until I fault him for it.
Yeah. And that's where, I look at the USHL and it's like, so it's the USHL type of player, but spread out over Canada, USHL times 3 is kind of my layman's way of looking at it. Is that's 3 more of USHL type teams, which is why I'm thinking about what does happen to the NHL and especially tier 3. If some of those CHL players are going to end up taking some of those scholarships, but no more scholarships. So in the end, all of it, I think, raises the floor of college hockey, which overall I think is a good thing. And from a macro sense, this is what we want. So it's, we'll see how. I'm really excited to see how those CHL players do. Not just McKenna and Martone, but all of the ones that maybe are a little bit under the radar, and just to kind of see. And I think we're going to find out that some of them will pan out to be really good, some of them will pan out to be not so good, just like with some USHL players. It's going to be very, very similar to that. So it's but overall I think it's a good thing for college hockey, and again, good thing for the development of the players too. And one thing that I think College Hockey Inc. has done a really good job of just kind of expressing and being more upfront with Canadian families and talking to them about the whole aspect of college hockey, is that you don't get traded or anything along those lines during the season. But it's, it's like you're getting that education. So there's a lot more, that kind of goes into it, that some of those families might never even thought of. So I don't know. Seeing that as a path, I think overall is exciting. We'll see kind of what happens and what that does for the development of the league.
Yeah. For players, I think it's unquestionably a good thing. If you're a hockey prospect, Canadian or American, international for that, European for that matter, your options are unlimited now. There's no, you can play in CHL and then transition to NCAA, which is not allowed prior to this. So for the player itself, and for all these things, house settlement, this all is in the benefit of the player. That's unquestioned. It's the impact on the schools, and in particular the smaller schools like in St. Cloud's boat, how they're going to be able to adapt to these changes, because teams like Penn State can fork up the kind of money that we're talking about here. It's impossible for St. Cloud to compete with that in terms of money. When it comes to that, they can compete with them on the ice, but when it comes to business and macroeconomic sense, it's not possible to compete with that. We'll see how it plays out, not just this next year, but the next decade, because it's going to be a big, I mentioned in that show that I re-listened to from November, I said all of these things, house settlement, all of these things, it's going to define this decade of NCAA hockey. The 2020s will be defined as the professionalization in a large sense of amateur sports and of hockey in particular. When CHL is kind of a hockey specific expansion of player movement and player compensation, unique to the hockey when it comes to college sports. So this is, and it's still a story that's playing out. We're in like chapter 2 or 3 of a 12 chapter story here. So there's a lot in this story arc that is still yet to play out. And players keep an eye. I mean, with McKenna, one thing, call me, a jersey chaser or fame chaser. It's going to make me more interested in watching Penn State games. I'll say that. Like tuning into a random game on a weekend on my second iPad or whatever. This is my second game that I play alongside the Huskies game. I might throw on a Penn State game. I really wasn't doing that in the past, but the hype is there. And, you mentioned the cake schedule. I've got it up here. So they start at Arizona State. They play at home against Clarkson, 2 at home against LIU, 2 at home against Stonehill, and then home and home against RIT.
I was going to say Rochester's in there, right?
Again, this isn't their worst, because ASU was pretty decent last year, a fringe tournament team, and Clarkson was there too. They were like 20th in the pairwise or something like that. And LIU had a decent season, 25th or so in pairwise. I did like the average pairwise of their non-conference dating back since COVID. The best of the bunch was like mid 30s. And so none of them have been good schedules, but this one is not the worst, because the worst was in the mid 40s. This has been a long standing bit.
How many are at home?
8 of the 10, or 7 of the 10. I'm sorry. They've played the 2 at Arizona State and then 1 at RIT, which is a bus drive for them. So it's one plane trip in non-conference for Penn State. And 7 out of 10 home games for the non-conference. Again, that's on the lower side of their home slate of their non-conference. There's been years where they played 8 or 9 of their non-conference games at home. You mentioned which you submitted as a early foot and mouth nominee, Dan Neer, the WHL commissioner, who put the famed pumping iron and drinking smoothies line. Yes.
Lowell Sun Sports Memorial Foot and Mouth Award nominee.
Earliest one I think that we've had so far. Earliest nominee. But it sounds like Mr. Neer has been recycling this talking point, the smoothies and pumping iron in particular, on a couple of different radio shows in the last week. And it's making the rounds. It's a good bit. And as Schlossman said, it's something that NCAA should be giving gift baskets to Dan Neer, because it's the kind of advertising that they could only imagine in years past. To have Canadian juniors suddenly, higher ups in the WHL on their back foot, scared about the emerging monster of NCAA hockey, like, sort of been unthinkable even 6 years ago. To have a commissioner of a CHL league say something like this in complete envy of the NCAA schedule. I did like that. We're talking about the Penn State schedule. I'm not even putting this as an official nominee, because I'm gonna make the rule that the Foot and Mouth Award cannot be a tweet. I think it's got to be either a spoken clip like Dan Neer's was, or like Chris Mayotte, the first winner, was a couple years ago, or it's got to be in like actual article form,
print
beyond
form, like
tweet.
the Lowell Sun Sports,
or yes, actual print form. That's like bonus points if it's actually in print. But the CHN website and a series of articles with Adam Woden about his favorite thing called Chip from last year. His was a sort of a cumulative award for all of his grandstanding about his newfangled chip statistic. So I don't think this is an official nominee, but I laughed for about 45 seconds. This is James Murray. I don't know if that's our Jimmy Murray, but he's the guy from ECH, the everything college hockey. That Penn State schedule, which was released, and everybody seemingly took a swing at that in terms of how soft it was. This is James Murray. Everyone's saying this is an easy schedule. LIU plays a style of game that will leave you in the ice bath for 3 days straight after the series. These schools have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So defending the Penn State schedule because LIU is a flex. And it's worthy of at least me bringing it up because I thought that was something that was a take. LIU, we should mention, doesn't have their coach left after this season. He's coaching Ferris F. State now, so who knows if they still play that ice bath type hockey with their new coach. I don't really know if we can tell what the style of the team plays based on their coach leaving, and he left with about 15 of their players to Penn State, we should mention too. So I'm not really sure we should expect that 25th in pairwise LIU to give Penn State all that they can ask for in mid-October next year. But I at least appreciate someone sticking their chin out there and willing to defend the Charbon schedule of Penn State. But not an official nominee, but an honorable mention, put it that way.
Gotcha. But to go back to the original nominee, Dan Neer pretty much conceded that the NCAA is business class, and cautions that playing Friday and Saturday schedule and then pumping iron and drinking smoothies all week will make you soft and ill-prepared for professional hockey, as chartered flights will deny you the character-building opportunities of
bus rides in Saskatchewan.
Yep.
12-hour bus rides.
So it's playing college hockey will make you soft because you play less games and drink smoothies and work out all week. So that's a good one. And as you said, wasn't the only one. It wasn't just on Guy Flaming's Pipeline show, but you said he likes that.
At least
phrase.
once other time he used the literal pumping iron and drinking smoothies catchphrase.
I just love the whole thought process of argument, or the whole argument of like, well, yeah, that's business class down there. You want that grit and sandpaper of riding a bus in January through Manitoba.
That's ridiculous. I think there is something to be said about the schedule. I think that will be something that's going to be the biggest change for these players. You're going from 70 plus game schedule, right, in CHL to 35 and change depending on how far you make it in the playoffs. For NCAA, I mean, yeah, and you're basically just playing weekends versus playing, a couple 4 times a week, let's say, in the WHL or any of the CHL leagues. So yeah, I think there's a debate to be had which has been going on for decades, and it was usually the Canadians that pumped up their chest about, see what we're playing the actual schedule here.
Yeah. That prepares you more for AHL
right.
schedule is.
And it's, you don't want to play against these 26-year-old college kids. And now that's a feature, not a bug. And so it's very funny how you can have almost the same exact conversation, except
Big Ten team you ask if it's a feature or a bug, because the Big Ten team still will. And I guess I don't know where Lucia stands on that now. I know where he used to stand on it, but now being the commissioner,
it's hard for him to, as the commissioner of
Lucia to make a decision, one way exactly, like on anything, or when a game ends or anything along those lines. So.
As part of my research into the 90s Huskies, I've been YouTube has some old games from the 90s and some CC. There's a bunch of CC games, and boy, Lucia, 90s Lucia with the mullet in the back.
Oh yeah,
the full salad. He was a good looking guy. I'll say it.
The Don. He was the Don for the reason. It's
and that was a good team. St. Cloud had the heart. That was like the team they could not beat. They'd be able to, they beat the Gophers enough. It's funny, like North Dakota wasn't what we think of North Dakota up until 97 when they won the national title with Blaze. Before that, they were bad. And so they didn't really reemerge.
Belfour in the 80s, right?
In 87, yeah. And then they made a tournament in they didn't make it between 87 and 97. They won the national title in both of those years. They made it once. Made it to the tournament once, which I think was 1990. But the last 5 years of Gino Gasparini, they were awful. I mean, they were like 12 and 24 type seasons. And then Blaze took over. He had like one bad year, and then he quickly got them back to winning national titles within 2 or 3 years. And they've kind of been the same. But like mentioning in that article that I wrote, I mean, they weren't traveling as a fan base back then. So St. Cloud and North Dakota games were not well attended. There were some games in the early 90s that North Dakota was one of the worst attended games of the year. Some of those years in the early 90s, which is just it seems so weird to think about that now. But anyway, I digress. 90s Don Lucia hair appreciation minute.
Oh, there you go. Other news that kind of came out that was pretty interesting. College athletes, the college select team will be eligible for the Spengler Cup. Spengler Cup is a tournament that is hosted in Switzerland, I believe, in Davos. That is held just before the World Juniors, or around that time.
It's
maybe
like concurrent. It's like the
end of December.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a mix of select teams, some club teams. In the past, AHL team has gone, but there'll be like a team from the German Hockey League, or just kind of a smattering of teams. Team Canada always has a team going. So, the fact that the college players will be selected to go is just kind of an interesting, kind of a surprise that we'll have a team there, and we haven't heard anything more about it. But who's going to be the coach? Who's going to go eligibility wise? It's going to be kind of interesting to kind of follow from afar as this tournament again held in Switzerland every year, and I believe it's touted as the oldest tournament, international tournament. So I think it goes back over 100 plus years.
1923, it looks like it was the first year.
Oh, sure enough.
Of it. So over 100 years.
But, just kind of like even just looking at last year, some of the players that were in it, or I guess this is 2 years ago, but Zane McIntyre was a goalie for one of the teams. Adam and Tambellini was one of the scoring leaders. So it's just kind of interesting. I looked back and we actually had a United States Select team back in the 88-89 season with some college hockey players. It looks like that was the last time they had that team. And I believe they won the tournament that year, but they had some college hockey players that are on that one. So it'll be interesting to see what type of players that kind of go to it and what type of roster that gets assembled, and kind of a fun little tournament that is played that should be a really good opportunity for some players.
Yeah. So it's mostly pro teams that play in this, or at least professional players. Zane McIntyre, as you mentioned, was playing for a German team. So the Straubing Tigers is who won the thing last year, and McIntyre was their goalie. I'm trying to find the Team Canada. So I don't believe there's no age limits here. It's not like the World Juniors where there's like an age cutoff, and there's no nationality cutoff either. That's going to be the interesting thing. Like that 88 team was a USA Selects team. This team, as it's being reported, is just an NCAA Select team. So it can be any nationality, it can be any age, which is unique. It just hasn't happened yet. And like you mentioned, it takes second banana, this tournament does, to the World Juniors, because it takes place around the same time or during the same time last week in December. So because it's not the World Juniors, you're not going to get guys that play on the World Juniors to play on the Spengler Cup team. I would imagine it's going to be older guys, maybe senior type players, senior college hockey players. As far as coaching staff, should mention, so Motzko, old friend, mentioned him a fair amount on this show. He's got the World Juniors job this year, and he announced his assistant crew this year, and Brett Larson not among that class. And I think he's the only one of the assistant group last year or the last 2 years under Carl that's not returning, because Reboyne is coming back and Steve Miller is coming back. Miller coaches for Motzko, and he's been at the World Juniors for several years. He's been like last 10 years, I think, under whoever has coached the team. He seems like to be a package deal. Whoever's going to be the head coach gets Steve Miller, and Miller is Motzko's assistant at Minnesota anyway. So that was natural. And we know Reboyne's history with Motzko. That's no surprise. It's Greg Brown from BC is basically taking Larson's slot as assistant coach on the staff. So that means that Larson, as we assume, is going to be free during that time. I don't know if he'll be involved in this. He's obviously participated in World Juniors as well as Olympic coaching staff. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if his number isn't in the phone of whoever this is. And that's the other thing. This isn't a USA Hockey sanctioned thing, I don't believe. So this isn't going to be something like John Van Biesbroek is in charge of fielding this roster, right? I would imagine it's some committee that's going to be formed for this purpose through the NCAA is going to be fielding this roster. That's one question I have as far as who's actually going to be in charge of building this thing from the roster standpoint. We'll get some more information on that, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's some Husky involvement either from the player side or coaching side. We shall see. I don't know. I mean, you got that California tournament that first weekend in December. Whoever, if any Husky goes to this thing, you'd feel like that would knock them out for their participation in the Cactus Cup. So I don't know if Larson really wanted to make that California trip, maybe if there's interest in him on the coaching staff for this thing, maybe that dissuades him from doing that. But we'll see. Just from an NCAA hockey kind of thing, it's interesting. It's unique, as you said, and kind of interested to check it out, even if it is in the shadow of the Twin Cities hosted World Juniors this year.
You brought up a point that I didn't think about, but yeah, it doesn't look like it's Team USA affiliated at all, because not only that, but all of the press's releases, it's US Collegiate Selects is the official term. So that is,
you can I have guys from Slovakia play on this thing.
Yep. So so it'll be interesting to see what type of roster can kind of hobble together and put out there and, win a tournament. Go college hockey.
That's right.
So, let's see, where are we at? Anything else here? We got some NCAA NCAA tournament talk. You want to get into?
Do we want to do that? I mean, we're at 2 hours.
We're at 2 hours.
How about we do a special show in a week?
In a week,
just on the NCAA tournament.
Okay. Yeah, let's
do 2 weeks.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks. Well, let's
do it. We'll give our listeners one bonus show this summer.
Oh God, you guys are so lucky. There's a reason why there are 22 5-star reviews on Spotify.
There'll be 23 when you
Spotify
add your
listener,
5-star review.
Add it.
Well, that's good. So we'll shove that off.
Actually, that really surprised me too. I don't have Spotify, but when I looked at it, somebody was like, "Oh, you've got 22 reviews, or 22 at least people selected, and it's a 5.0 rating." So I assume all of them did 5 stars.
Great.
So
that's what we like to hear.
That exactly. So
yeah, I know we teased it at the beginning of the show, but we do have some ideas to tweak the format, inspired by Carl. And Woden. They're awesome discussion. This is good because this gives our listeners a chance to download and listen to that episode of the CHN podcast. Just that's your homework before we take over and give our 2 cents or throw in some ideas against the wall and see if they stick. And it should be fun.
In that time too, I'll pose that question to all of our listeners as well. If you have an idea to fix the tournament, no idea is too crazy. We want to hear it.
Right.
Some of my ideas obviously would never happen, and not even saying they're good ideas, but I think they'd be fun.
Anything counts.
Let's just say some of my results want to bring back the NCAA tournament resume, and I'll just leave it at that.
Ooh.
So,
it didn't make my final cut, but I gave serious consideration to a 2-game highest goal total. Ooh. Bringing back that format from the 80s.
There you go.
It didn't make final cut. The 2 that I have, and maybe this narrows people's creativity, but the 2 I have maintain neutral site tournaments. That's the thing that I hate about the discussion, is that it seems like the 2 choices are we go back to campus or we stay with the same neutral site 4-site format that we've been doing for the last 22 years. There's more options in the neutral site category than what we have now and what we've been playing for over 20 years. So I'm limiting my suggestions to neutral site formats. And again, there's a lot you can do with that. So that's where I'm going with. But Carl obviously is going on campus. It's where I would go personally, myself. But I'm trying to throw a bone to the neutral site crowd. I'm saying, again, be more creative on your neutral sites. So that's where I'm kind of going with that. But it's going to be enough. Like we will easily go an hour just on this. Yeah. So that's why I think it would be a good idea to shove it off.
And that's why I want to hear you guys, hear from our listeners. If you guys got some ideas on NCAA tournament, Does that involve series? Does that involve expanding the field? Does that involve a 64-team tournament? Just knock everyone off men's basketball. I want to hear it. Just let's get weird.
Send out a tweet like before that, just so we can get some people's ideas.
Yeah,
and you email me. We'll show get the email out there, put in the show notes. So yeah, let's get a discussion going. That's what we want.
Perfect. A couple of questions.
Before we get to questions, I'm sorry to cut you off. I have one more topic. If we're going to shove this off, I want one more topic, which is just in the last couple of days.
Sure.
We talked about this when Woden, speak of the devil, brought it up.
I need a.
We do need a Woden.
Jason Bryant, I need a Woden sounder. I don't know what it will be, but like clearly it needs to be. It's got to be something Pepperidge Farm, maybe like a stick in the mud. Back in my day, Pepperidge Farm remembers. I don't know. We'll work out something with the.
We'll give you free reign.
I'll have our producer of the show hit you up.
Yes, yeah, we'll talk. But he brought this up a couple months ago with the Big Ten's playoff format.
Oh, that's right. That resurgence. Oh God!
And then Big Ten took them up on the offer, and so they announced that because top seeds crap out in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, in a best of three, can't. So the Gophers in this this year's example, 2 seed, lost to the last place team in Big Ten in a 3-game series, which was Notre Dame this year. And as a result, they had to wait 19 days until they played their opening game, which they lost. And of course, just add those two things, the 19-day wait and losing the game. Not mentioned in this argument is the fact that the Gophers had a 2-goal lead in the third period of that game that they coughed up. And that, and the fact that our buddy Motzko is decades long history of complaining about not enough rest.
Not enough rest.
Now he's complaining about too much rest. So it's a real Goldilocks problem we have here with the amount of rest. And as a result, they're shortening their postseason tournament to 2 weeks instead of 3. The culprit, the victim of that is series. So instead of the first round series, they're just going to play a single game elimination on the Wednesday, on a Wednesday. And then the 3 days from there on Saturday, they're playing the semifinals.
I just can't
wait. A week later, they're playing the final game.
I can't wait for the first Motzko. Oh, the Wednesday game screws all my schedules off. Like we're not. Or used to a Wednesday.
if he wins that game, then it's we got to play this game on 2 days rest on Saturday. We need another day of rest. Can we move this to Sunday?
A Wednesday. Sunday.
I need another day of rest. It's gonna happen, and Woden will be at the forefront of that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure,
leading the charge.
I only bring it up because now the chatter is, the NCHC is going to the same format that the Big Ten just condensed. Their first all-on-campus tournament is set to play out this year with this 3-week format where if that 1 seed loses in the first round, they get 18, 19 days off before they make the tournament. Oh, no, we can't have that happen. So we've got think pieces from the Schlossmans and the Matt Wellens of the world, considering whether or not the NCHC should follow suit in condensing their postseason tournament. Before I get your opinion, I'll say the NCHC will be, there's one element that I don't think either of those writers brought up. It comes down to money. If the NCHC does this, meaning they get rid of the 2 out of 3 series and make that a single game, and then make the semifinal a single game and the final game a single game, they're going to be cutting out at least 4 games of revenue. So going from a best 2 out of 3 to a single game, you're at least cutting out 4 games of revenue, if not more of that, if any series goes 3 games. And again, conference playoffs, the conference tournament, the conference takes the gate for all those games. So even if it's at the campus sites, those first round games in the past, going back to the WCHA days, those are all of those ticket sales go to the conference, and then they're divvied up evenly throughout the entire conference. Big moneymaker for all of the teams in the conference. I would feel like the Big Ten, those kind of money issues are less important to the Big Ten because Big Ten hockey is one very small segment of the overall Big Ten pie. Whereas the NCHC is a single sport conference, this is a big chunk of their revenue. I feel like they'll be less willing to give up 4 or 5 games of revenue to condense the tournament into a 2-week format. But it might come down to the coaches wanting that because they're scared of being inactive for almost 3 weeks. So what do you think? Do you think this is this? I think it's ridiculous too, but do you think the NCHC is going to follow suit with the ridiculousness?
I don't think so. Not until it affects them. Now, obviously, NCHC has had the postseason prowess where it really hasn't mattered. But looking back, it was because it was Minnesota and they were up 3-1
against UMass.
Yeah, against UMass.
It was a 2-goal lead. It was either 4-2. It might have been 3-1 and 4. They might have had multiple 2-goal leads in that game.
Okay. But I think, let me see if I can find the box score quick, because I think they were up after
random box score.
Yeah, right.
I thought they were leading the entire game.
Yeah. But I think the year before it was Wisconsin against Quinnipiac.
Well, Wisconsin lost to, I think it was Ohio State in the conference tournament in the same situation where they had
the same
2
situation
weeks off.
happened. So I think it's that aspect of it happened 2 years in a row. So it's like, oh, we've got a, correlation, I guess, equals causation here in this instance. But it's, in that game, at least Wisconsin got outshot pretty bad there in the first period.
I think it was a 1-goal game though. I mean,
it was still a 1-goal game. And that went
there's a problem.
So, yes.
Yeah. And it's a problem of looking at NCAA tournament results as some sort of key to truth. Like it's one random game in, Fargo, for the Gophers, in that example, it's just one game. And the fact that these two teams, what's the bigger correlation? The fact that both of these teams were off for 2 weeks, is that the reason they lost the game? Or the fact that maybe they lost to the 7th place team in Big Ten in a 2 out of 3 series, maybe that gave you a bit of an idea that they're not that good.
Yeah.
The fact that they couldn't beat Ohio State, that makes sense that they couldn't beat Quinnipiac 2 weeks later. Because Quinnipiac's a little bit better team than Ohio State was that year. And UMass was a better team than Notre Dame was this year. I don't know. That seems like a more stronger correlation than the 19 days of rest.
So, and again, I would imagine that you would want rest at that point of the year. So it I've never really bought the whole rest versus rust aspect of it. It's, if you are a high caliber athlete like these players are, you're going to be able to get up for a game. Maybe it takes a shift or two to kind of get used to it, but eventually everything kind of takes over. And I don't feel like the NCAA or NCHC is gonna shake in our boots about it. But we'll. It just, to me, seems like such a big non-issue and such a big scapegoat of another excuse as to why the Big Ten is not had near the success they thought it was since the league has been established.
I totally agree. It's a solution that's begging for a problem.
Yeah.
I don't really think, and I do think that the NCAA, not this year, because I think they're kind of set for this year. I think it would be too late for them to make such a change being the first time that's going to be all on campus. I think they want at least 1 year to see how it works with the series and the 3-week format. But I would not be surprised if starting in year 2 of this format that they do go to a 2-week format rather than a 3-week format. We'll see. But so it wouldn't shock me. I'll just put it that way. I hope not. I don't like the fact that the Big Ten's cutting out. I like series. I hate the fact that the NCAA tournament has no series. I hate that they're all one and dones, even though that's what the coaches prefer, according to Carl. But so I don't like that aspect of it as well. And so getting rid of a series in the conference tournament would be a downgrade from my perspective, because I just think a series is inherently more exciting than a one-off. So we'll see how it plays out. But it was just like, it seems like too cute by half. And I hope that the NCHC isn't super. They're not. Hopefully, they're not in a rush to follow suit with that. But I wanted to bring it up because it's going to be a talker. And there's data points that are against it as well. I don't think it's been Denver in 2004, either 2004 or 2005. They lost the first round of the WCHA playoffs that year and ended up winning the national title. That they would not have been off for 19 days because that was still a 2-week format, the old Final Five. But you've had teams, I think Schlossman said it was Providence in 2015. They lost their first round series in the Hockey East and ended up winning the national title. So, and those teams, again, not a 19-day layoff, but a 2-week layoff, let's say 14-day layoff. That's happened. My suggestion in March when this whole business, when Woden wrote the article that prompted this whole thing, was grant these teams permission to schedule a quick exhibition game somewhere in the break. Michigan also lost their first round series in the Big Ten tournament this year to Penn State. They were a fringe team. They ended up not making the NCAAs, but they were right on the bubble. They were one of the first 1 or 2 teams out. Like, see if Minnesota and Michigan would just have a scrimmage, like in the midpoint of that 19-day break. Yeah, it's not going to matter for anything, and players might not go at full speed because of injury risk, but at least you're going to at least kick some rust off in a somewhat competitive form, and you're not going to be as rusty as you think you would be if you didn't play something like that in the interim. That was my suggestion. I felt like that was more reasonable than moving the mountains of the playoff format and getting rid of the series and all that.
Or we've got a handful of independent teams too.
Yeah.
So
that's not like Lindenwood see like all those independents would have been, their season would have been done by that point. Yeah. Give Lindenwood $200,000 to go up to Mariucci and play.
You got money to burn,
right?
Clearly.
Yeah,
so get a CHL team now. Now you can play CHL teams.
I think the Huskies season would have been done by then. Like, give the Huskies $60K to go down to Mariucci. I'm sure that why not? Yeah. Some of those players that if you're like Colin Ralph and you're thinking about going to the transfer portal, like see what they could do against the Gophers there in a meaningless exhibition game. Yeah. Just right before the NCAA tournament, put on a little bit of a showcase for potential players that want to prove something. It's a better idea than I think what the Big Ten ended up doing. But again, they don't pay me for my ideas.
Nope. They pay Woden apparently.
Yes, they do.
So, Dave Jacobson, UMD rumored to go to Northern Ireland on a future trip. What is your dream international college hockey destination?
I didn't hear that. That must be that Friendship 4, I think is what they're calling it.
Imagine.
Which I think is over like Thanksgiving break. They've had it there for, I don't know, 5-6 years. I think I think Miami is playing in it this year, if I'm not mistaken. Because it's usually been Eastern teams, but maybe they're trying to branch out with some more Western teams as well. Yeah, that would be interesting. I can't say that Northern Ireland has been on my bucket list, but it would be intriguing. Like if St. Cloud were to play in that thing, I would look into
Ireland
flights.
Is pretty awesome.
I would definitely look into flights. I'll say that. I mean, what other? I mean, there is no real
Cup
other.
now.
Spengler Cup could be one.
So
I hear Switzerland is lovely.
I love Switzerland was gorgeous. It was so nice.
They should. I mean, I'm wondering, like, you play. I mean, NHL's been playing more games in Europe in the last couple of years. I think the Wild played there last year, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah,
can't remember where that was. Was it like Czech Republic or something? I feel like it was somewhere in like Eastern Europe, but college hockey seems to have really only branched out to Belfast. So I'm not sure if there's, I think I would have heard if there was rumors of other international trips, but if Dan Jacobson is giving us permission to just go anywhere, throw a dart on the globe to see if like where the best like international hockey to catch a St. Cloud game would be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right outside the Louvre, right outside build a rink right there, right in front of the pyramid at the Louvre. That's what I would like.
How about like Finland? You got Jalosuo. I mean, we've got the big Finnish pipeline.
In Finland? That's not.
I mean, men's side has a good Finnish connection as well.
Yeah,
Mike Gibbons loved to recruit from that area. So I mean, there's history with Finland and St. Cloud State, Vidi, the Miettins. So maybe Finland, somewhere in somewhere in Scandinavia. I'll say. I think I'll go with, or maybe I don't know, Denmark. Denmark sounds good. Belgium, maybe, for some waffles.
Oh,
I think Belgium would be good. I'm not sure how much they care about hockey there, but I'll go somewhere in that northern Europe, Scandinavia region, somewhere in there. That'd be fun.
That's and SDP. I love the press conference with Mira. I can't think of anything who'd be more natural and forward-thinking fit. Do you think the transfer pipeline / commitments will see more action with the Husky connections to the PWHL? It's, anytime you have any of these connections and success at the next level, I think it's just kind of a feather in your cap. And I saw that they have like the new wrappings. They did like a little bit of a behind the scenes of the women's wrappings of like the workout facilities and everything. And they've added like the PWHL board of like Huskies that were drafted in the PWHL as well. So it's, yeah, I mean, you can point to those and be like, yeah, we had, 3 commitments or, 3 former players that, it can happen here and we want you to be part of it. And I know what it takes. All of that is just good, good aspect and, good to have. And I expect that to continue, especially, for the women's team. And like I said, I know I might have sounded a little bit more negative that we might take a step back. But I'm still really optimistic of where this program is and where it's heading over the next couple of years. So it's going to be a fun, it's going to be a fun ride. And again, I think they hit it out of the park with this hire.
I agree. And you think like the last coach that the women's program had to hire, Adolski, in 2022, PWHL did not exist then. So just in this 3-year time period, just the development of women's hockey at the pro level, it's entered this phase of this is the future now. And to get a coach to replace Adolski that has experience at that level, I think is a huge plus. I think it's one of the main reasons I think she was on the radar of St. Cloud, that and obviously her experience at St. Cloud previous to her joining the Frost. So yeah, it's great. I think that's it's a move with the professional ranks in mind. And again, you can't scoff at that. Seeing the track record of St. Cloud State alums playing at that level or getting drafted to that level, as we saw 3 times this year. I'll throw this out to you. Like, again, I'm not the PWHL. I think you're following that more than I am at this point. I barely follow the NHL at this point. Mm-hmm. Who on this current roster do you see as a PWHL draft pick in the future?
I mean, clearly the number 1, 2 that I think of is Sorial and Sunderland. I think Sorial, maybe a little bit ahead. I think just her evasiveness, I think, kind of puts her at a good level in a way that she's a little bit more of an opposite type of a player, of a Gentry, where, that game suits her because of the physicality. I think Sorial's just a little bit harder to hit, and she's a little bit more creative. And I think putting her on a line with, someone like, an O'Brien or a Colton Kova, I think her playmaking ability can get there. And then obviously we're looking at Kariko and Chilback. The goalies.
I think Kariko for sure.
Yeah, the only big issue that you're looking at there is just you can't fill all of the goalie positions with St. Cloud State alums, but it's just kind of where they're at. I feel like they would be solid additions to any team.
And I'm looking at the roster because Sorial and Sunderland, both sophomores this past year, so they'll be juniors. And then Kariko just finished her freshman year, so she's a sophomore. The junior class was kind of skimpy just in numbers this year, so I'm not even sure. I would almost not think that we're going to see a draftee next draft. Got Avery Farrell is a senior coming up this year, so and we've got Svenja Vogt. I'm not sure that these are on PWHL draft roster projections. Wouldn't imagine so. Is Reagan Bulger, is she still on roster or is she transferred? Again, it's summer podcast. I feel like Bray was the one who transferred.
Carmen Bray.
So I think Bulger's still. I think
Bulger's still on the team,
coming back. She's going to be a senior this year as well. It's just interesting, like as far as who's going to be wearing letters this year. The names I just mentioned are probably going to be among those candidates. JoJo, you don't really see goalies wear letters, but she's the den mother of that roster. Lots of experience.
I would imagine JoJo I would imagine Grace Wolf gets this.
Well, I'm sleeping on her here. So that's I think you nailed it there. Because I think she wore a letter this year as well. Yeah, she's going to definitely be. Yeah, because it screwed me up here because she's mentioned as a senior, but as we've mentioned, she had that one medical red shirt year, so she'll be back. We think, right? Based on previous reporting, she will be back. So that's a good call. And who knows, if she plays as well as she's capable of playing, maybe she gets a sniff at the P-Dub in the future as well. So
I don't know, a little bit of a down year last year, coming back from injury and whatnot. So I expect, so I'm excited to see what she does.
Yeah. And like I said, the coaching move, from a perspective of giving us a jolt of energy after sort of the gut punch of Adolski's departure, this fit the bill. Like it got me back to a level of at least I'm not doomsaying about the future of the program. I think we're on the right track. I like the hire, and I like what I saw today at the press conference. I think we're in good hands.
Well, that about does it on the July podcast. We'll have early August or July part 2, Electric Boogaloo. I guess I don't know what to name the next.
You just named it.
Yeah, exactly. The 2.0 or the 0.5 podcast. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR, More Clappers. Andrew, you can find him at
Andrew HHP SCSU. You can email the show, and if you want to email your off the wall ideas for new NCAA tournament formats, email me at huskieshockeypodcast@gmail.com. And the Substack post or link, I guess, cloudcoveragehockey.substack.com. I'll put that in the show notes as well. There's 2 articles there. Like I mentioned, the attendance series, I might want to wait a little bit on that, but I want to get some content out in the meantime too. So I might be kind of bouncing between topics in a little bit, but I've got a lot of ideas. And if you have ideas as far as like, especially when it comes to like history with St. Cloud State hockey, I'm planning on if you have topics of interest that you think that would make for a good article, I'm happy to hear them. I've got ideas about like the start of the women's program in the 90s. That's one that I've been reading about as I've been researching those 90s Huskies topics. Early NCAA tournament, the regional. I've got all those attendance figures. You'd be shocked. The very first NCAA neutral site regional in 92 at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, like 3,000 fans in a 20,000 seat arena. For 2 years they did that. So it's never been a good system from the very first year. And so I've got some information about that I'm trying to compile for an article. So check that out if you're interested in some long form. I did see some complaining that there are long articles. It might take you 10 or 15 minutes to read these, but a lot of information in there. And I had a really fun time doing the research for it. So check it out if you're interested. And check out our socials to get the next, the part 2 of this, the Electric Boogaloo, the tournament, NCAA tournament aspect of this show.
That's Substack, though. That's the point of Substack, though, right? They're longer articles. That doesn't make any sense.
The first word of my description is long form articles. ... The first word is long.
All right.
So don't complain that they're too long.
Here's your homework. I would like a breakdown of the 2002 Hobie Baker and how
that's a good one.
and why the Hardigan got screwed.
I could find I'm sure there's opinion articles around the time making the case for Hardigan, making the case for Leopold. I have a lot of different newspapers at my disposal. I'm sure the Star Trib, the Grand Forks Herald's a good one. They always had a very good Verge Foss, who's a very good beat writer for the Fighting Sioux back then. So it's good.
Was he the pre-Schlossman?
He was the Schlossman has brought him up as sort of, he was his mentor, and he's damn good. And even like Doyle Woody, he's the Anchorage writer. I mean, Anchorage had a dedicated beat writer. Doyle Woody's good. He had some good reporting.
Might create a character wrestler in like WrestleMania 2000 for the N64. I would name him Doyle Woody with a DX Suck It shirt. That's my name, Doyle Woody.
They all had, I mean, that's the thing. 90s, everyone still was reading newspapers. Yeah. So all of these far-flung places, I can't find a Michigan Tech, like a Houghton newspaper. I would love to find that, because I'm sure that was in existence. It's not available on newspapers.com. Andy Baggett, he was a Wisconsin State Journal.
Oh yeah, he was a Wisconsin
Badger
State
writer. He was really good. I mean, I mentioned to you before the show, Mike Colleen, St. Cloud Times. He was the 90s beat writer for the Huskies. And then Kevin Allenspach in the 2000s. Great beat writers for the Huskies hockey teams of those eras. It's fun stuff. And yeah, you've given me a good research topic, so I'll have to dig into that one. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, I might look into that.
What, the O2 Hobie race?
No, newspapers.com.
Yeah, there's like a 10-day free trial, and then it's like $60 for 6 months. Well worth it from my perspective. I feel like that's money well spent. Because like it's United States, it's worldwide, and every state, every town, pretty much any major newspaper, you'll be able to go back as far back as that paper existed. And easy search features, browsing feature. You browse by date. You can search by keywords. It makes it easy. You can clip the articles and save them. I'm doing a free advertisement here for newspapers.com because it's informed my research for this project very well. And if you're a history buff of any degree, highly recommended.
Interesting.
Well worth the price, I think.
So, perfect. And it's got random box scores in it too, I would imagine.
That's one idea I have for cloud coverage content is doing a random box score, one that'd be not available on CHN. So something, before, I think 2003 is when their box scores, maybe even 2004. But I've got all of these clippings of box scores from 1990 on.
Nice.
And it's very, very interesting.
Cool. So, and until next time, go Huskies.